Hello and welcome. This is Trusting Through Trials. My name is Kyla Inez and I'm the host of this podcast. This is a Christian podcast, but that does not mean you have to be a Christian to listen. Today I'm doing something new that I have not done yet. I'm going to do a series where I read through James, so I think it's going to be 5 parts because there's 5 chapters. So we're going to do a series on James, which is scary for me because I've never done that before. In the past, I've just done like specific topics. I've actually read a lot of chunks of James, I think, throughout previous episodes. So if you have listened to my past ones, then there might be some familiar sounding things, but I mean, I doubt you would remember because I don't remember everything that I've said. I am both nervous and very excited just because it's exciting for me. But I want to clarify, I don't know everything about the Bible. I haven't read the whole thing. I don't know every single verse in depth. I'm not a pastor. I'm just someone who wants to share her faith. And I'm reading through James specifically because it's one of my favorite books, if not my favorite. I think it's kind of hard to say favorite book, though, just because there's so much goodness in the Bible. Like, every book is good and could be a favorite book. But James specifically is one that I've used a lot. It's the one that I've read through the most, and it's the book that I first read by myself and came back to when I was coming back to Jesus and just realized how much I needed him. It was the first book that I read, and so it means a lot to me, this book. And I just wanted to share it with other people because it's so good. And I think it's good if you went and read it slowly for yourself, because there are things that I might see that God would show me, but there would be things that I wouldn't see that God might show you, or just different things that stand out. And yeah, there's so much in every verse, and I'm not going to be able to cover every single verse. I'm not sure how long these episodes will be. You will see how long this episode is because you tapped on it, but I have no clue as I'm filming this. Could be my shortest episode. I feel like they're going to end up being shorter, but who knows. I'm so excited. If anything feels off throughout this whole podcast and you're just unsure, just double check in your word for yourself, or ask someone who you trust in the faith and just see what they say. But yeah, go to God and see for yourself. I don't fully know how I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna read the whole thing and then go over it, or if I'm gonna go over it as I'm going through and then resuming. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But we're just going to read James chapter 1 today. I'm so excited. James chapter 1, I think, has a lot of what is in the other chapters, just more condensed. So I don't know how deep I want to go into everything, just because some of the same topics get delved in deeper in future chapters. But yeah, okay. I'm just gonna start going. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations. Greetings. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Okay. I think as reading it, I have decided I'm going to go through this in chunks. And yeah, okay. Verse 2, 3, and 4 have been a huge encouragement in my life whenever I'm facing trials and just going through things, because it says that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and that we should consider it pure joy, just because trials help strengthen us, and I've seen how they have helped me grow. And there's some things that you just can't learn without going through hard things. It makes me think of the verse in the Old Testament, I believe. Maybe not. I don't remember where it is. But just like being refined like silver, and how silver has to go into the hottest part of the fire, in the center of the fire, in order to be refined. And Jesus is like the silversmith, and God is our silversmith, and he is refining us, and our trials are us in the midst of the fire sometimes, and coming out of them makes us more beautiful and stronger. And it also makes me think of the verse in Romans that says, God works all things for the good of those who love him. It helps me to be encouraged that they're not going to last forever, and they're used to strengthen us and grow us. And I think that it is really beautiful, and it is really cool to look back at them once you're past the trial and once you get through it, to look and see how God has grown you through it. And just while you're in it, looking at it like, how can this be used for me to learn, for me to do better, and for me to trust God? How can this bring me closer to him? And just focus on those things. And it is something that I have learned to consider it pure joy, even though it can be really hard, and sometimes it's just like, God, why can this please end? But he will bring us through it, and they're honestly a beautiful thing. I'm gonna read over verse 5, 6, and 7 again. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Okay, this shows us how big doubt is and the impact that it can have, because with knowing other parts of the Bible, specifically what I'm thinking of right now is Matthew, and it's in more than just Matthew, but the parable of the mustard seed, and how having faith the size of a mustard seed is enough to move mountains. Mustard seed is so small, like so small, and you only need faith the size of a mustard seed in order to move an entire mountain. And it's almost like we don't have faith when we doubt. We don't really trust that God can do it. And we're like, I'm going to ask, but no part of me really believes that this could happen. So then if that's where our heart is, then why would God want to answer that prayer? Now, God is a good God, and he is a generous God, and it says so. It said, God who gives generously to all without finding fault. He is a good God, and he gives generously. But if we ask and no part of us really believes and we're just doubting God, then that person shouldn't expect to receive anything. They didn't even believe that they would. But it does say they should not expect to receive anything. It does not say that person will not receive anything. They still might, but it's if it is the Lord's will. He can still answer a prayer even if you have doubt. But if you have even just a little bit of faith in there, that's all you need. That's all you need, because faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. It's just don't doubt and have no faith. Trust in God, because He created the universe and there is no limits to Him. And sometimes I forget that. And I am someone who doubts very often. And I will pray and I will be like, I honestly, it's like, it's not even possible though. So I don't know why I'm asking this. But it's like, no, it is possible, because God can do anything. Literally anything. And so I have no reason to doubt Him. Okay. And then I'm going to go and start reading verse 9. And then I think I'm kind of going in chunks of 3, but that's not intentional. Okay, I'm going to go verse 9, 10, and 11. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wildflower. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they go about their business. It almost sounds like the rich just suck and they're just all shameful, and it says they should take pride in their humiliation, and it sounds like they're all just going to be destroyed. But that's not entirely what it's saying. It's saying, what I believe it is saying is, believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. Is even believers who are poor can take pride in their high position in heaven and their treasures in heaven. That is where they have their high position. It's not on earth and about what we have on earth. It's about what we have in heaven, and that is what makes us rich. But how the world sees it is you're rich in what you own, where you are in a job. Like, it's not about the things of the earth, because we can't take anything with us to heaven except ourselves. It's not saying that rich people, they all are just should be in their humiliation, but it's actually like even rich people who are Christians have possessions in heaven. This is talking about the rich who don't follow God, and anyone honestly who doesn't follow God. But it kind of makes me think of the verse in Matthew. The whole chunk in Matthew is Matthew 19:16-30, but I'm going to read Matthew 19:23-26. It says, Then Jesus said to the disciples, Truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, Who can be saved? Jesus looked at them and said, With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. It reminded me of those verses because what those verses are saying is a rich man, it's hard for him to want to give up what he has, his possessions and his wealth. And he doesn't want to give that up to follow God, or to follow God and to serve him. If he was asked to leave it all, he might not. Like, literally before those verses, there is a rich man talking to Jesus, and he asks him, how can he get into heaven? And Jesus says to follow the commands, and then he says, I have done that. And then he says to leave his things, and he won't do that because he doesn't want to leave all that he has. He's not willing to give it up for God. And those are the rich people that I believe these verses are talking about, are the people who will not give up their possessions for God and who think that what they have is more valuable, because what they have in heaven is nothing if they are not willing to live their lives for God and to realize that it's not worth having possessions on earth if you have nothing in heaven. So there can be rich people who realize that it really means nothing, and the only thing that's important is following and pursuing God. So you can be wealthy and still follow God. It's just when you love your possessions and your belongings more than Jesus. And it's not always like super rich. This could be for anyone, for whatever you have, if you're not willing to give it up and follow Jesus. When it says, with man, this is impossible, it also says, but with God, all things are possible, which just proves, and that's how we know that it doesn't matter your wealth. It's just harder for the rich. And without God, it is impossible for them to enter heaven. It is impossible for anyone to enter heaven. But the more you have, the harder it is for you to want to give it up sometimes. And I think that's what it's talking about. It's not just saying, oh, rich people, they're all gonna eventually be destroyed. And it's just saying that our wealth doesn't come from the things that we have, and our wealth is what we have in heaven. And living for God and storing up treasures in heaven, that is where our treasure is. In verse 11, when it says, for the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant, its blossoms fall, and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away, even while they go about their business. That's just like in the end, whether it is the end of their life or in the end times. It's not going to matter how much you have. It's not going to matter the money you have, the possessions you own. It's not going to do anything for you. And so it will just fade away. Continuing on, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. That goes along with verse 2, 3, and 4, I think. And I also just love that verse. Reading 13. Not sure where I'm going to stop. I'm just going to go. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. This chunk, there's actually quite a lot in it, but right now I'm just gonna say that it just shows how we are sinful, and how sin is not a light thing. It's not a little thing. It's a serious thing, because it says when sin is full grown, it gives birth to death. That's why Jesus came and died for us, because without him we deserve that death because of our sin. And it's just a reminder that sometimes it's because of us. It says each person is tempted when they are dragged by their own evil desire. We are sinful people. We have our own evil desires and our own wants that don't go along with God, and they're deserving of death. It's not a light thing, and I'm not going to pretend that it is a light thing. And it's good to be reminded of that sometimes, because it just shows us even more how beautiful of a gift Jesus' life was for us. And he rose again, of course. But we deserved that death. And that death is something that we can never truly understand. I don't know, I just want to share this right now because it's what I don't even fully know why I'm saying all of what I'm about to say, but I don't know, I feel like God is telling me to share it. So when I think of Jesus' death, it's actually been debated whether or not it was the most painful death that anyone has ever experienced. And a lot of people say it wasn't, even though it was so brutal. And I just can never agree with those people, because I think even without the physical pain that he went through an unimaginable amount of even just mental pain going through that. But the physical in and of itself was so much. Jesus went through so much for us. He was whipped and stoned, and he had to lift himself up in order to breathe when he was on that cross. You could see his bones. He was unrecognizable with how much they tortured him. The crown of thorns was all around his head. From back then, the crown of thorns, it was essentially a helmet of thorns with inch-long thorns that just got stabbed into him. The whips went so deep into his skin. And I think that wasn't even the worst part of what he went through. He went through something that no one on earth has had to experience yet. And that's the full and utter separation from God, our Father, our Creator. And that's what's so scary about if we weren't following him. And for those who aren't following Jesus, is they're going to have to endure that pain for the rest of eternity. And that's why it's such a serious thing. And that is why we should share the gospel and the goodness of the gift of Jesus. Because God doesn't want anyone to have to go through that, because he loves everyone. Every single person he created, he loves them. He loves all of us. And I don't want anyone to have to go through that. And it might sound like a little thing, but you have not spent a true day in your life that God has been fully, completely separated from you. Right now, we're living where we get to choose to follow him or not. And in the end times is when we no longer get that choice. And that's when people will feel the full, utter separation from God. The reason I say you've never really experienced a life fully separated from God, sure, even if God has saved you from a life full of sin, partying, getting drunk, dabbling in possibly even just demonic things, you haven't experienced it because God is all around us. He is always watching over everyone. He loves all of us, and he's in your lives, and he is trying to get you to come to him. And he is always around, and he sees everything. He is everywhere, and we just don't really realize that because we can't see him or feel him, and we can forget that. And especially people who don't know him, they don't realize that God is always even around them. Yes, when you're following him, you have extra protection because you are his. But right now, he wants all of us. And because of that, he is over everyone's lives. He's watching everyone's life. And if you've gone through any sort of grief or losing anyone of any sorts, then you can sympathize with knowing how much that hurts and how mental pain is often stronger than physical pain, where it burns from the inside out when you're grieving sometimes, and it's just an overwhelming amount of pain, and we would be losing the person who created us if we end up going to hell, and we would be consumed with mental pain over physical pain, but we would even be in physical pain. It's a lake of fire. It's a serious thing. That Jesus went through. I feel like I needed a moment after that. I just felt like God was telling me to say it. And was he really? I'm not sure, but okay, going to continue on reading James, starting again at verse 16. It says, "Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created." First thing that has stood out to me in the past is who does not change like shifting shadows. He does not change. And that's a verse that I've gone back to many of times, just as a reminder that God has always been who he is. He's the same God he is today. He's the same God he was in the New Testament, and he's the same God he was in the Old Testament. He's the same God he has always been, and he does not change. The second thing is at the end of verse 18, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. That is such a huge honor, to be his first fruits. The first fruits were the best of the crop that would be offered to God. And so that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created is just one of the biggest honors that we can have from God. Like, look around at everything he's created. There's so much beauty in this world, like the sky, the grass, the trees, flowers, the ocean. It's so beautiful. Waterfalls. I love waterfalls. Waterfalls are so pretty. Rainbows. And we would be his first fruits above all those things. That's insane. And it says he chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might become a kind of first fruits. It's through believing and being born again and following Jesus that we will get to be his first fruits, his best of the best. Okay, I'm gonna go to verse 19, and I'm not sure where I'm gonna end off. Maybe 25. It says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." That is something that I have to constantly remind myself of, because I can be fast to speak and slow to listen and become angry very fast. And this is something that I have to remind myself every day. Like, even when I'm just with a friend, that I should be slow to speak and quick to listen, to show them that I care and that I love them, and also slow to become angry. One of my struggles is when I'm not in my word, I notice that I get a lot more irritable. So it is also just learning self-control, and it is a struggle that I think I will always face, is just fighting the irritableness that is inside of me. And that's why this verse is so big for me, because it says slow to become angry. And when you're irritable, you become angry and grumpy very fast. But it is something that I'm working on and will, I think, always kind of have to work on a little bit. Okay, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. I just think it's so beautiful whenever the Bible says humbly, because it can be very self-righteous sometimes, and it's just like denying ourselves, just accepting it, knowing that we did nothing to deserve it and that it's been gifted to us. And it's not because we're worthy of it. Okay, verse 22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. It's essentially saying, listen up and do what you hear. Don't just go to church and sit there and just zone out and then leave and then not even think about what your pastor said or what you heard. Or if you were to read your Bible and just read it and then go out and do something that you just read not to do. It's saying, listen and do. Do what God is saying. Do what the Bible says. When you read that something is wrong, then work towards not doing that thing anymore. Don't just go about living how you would before you knew that it was wrong. Work with God to change and to grow and to try and do better. Think on it throughout the day. Try and remind yourself what you learned. Yes, it's okay if you happen to zone out in church and you don't always get something. That's okay. If you don't always get something when reading the Bible, that's okay. But that shouldn't be how it is every single time with everything and just not living in a way that God would want you to. It's saying do what the law says. Do what the Bible says. Do what God is saying. It is the perfect law, and it says that whoever looks intently and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. When you listen to Him and you do what the Bible is saying and what God is saying, you will be blessed. Don't go on living like everybody else. And then the very last chunk of James 26 and 27, it says, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts is pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. We should care for those who are in need, and we need to be set apart from the world and not the same as them, getting polluted by them. It says, religion that our Father accepts is pure and faultless. We are sinful, and He knows that, and He's not saying before you get to be saved, you're gonna have to be fully without sin on your own. But when Jesus died for us, He took on our sin, and through Him, even though we are sinful beings, He made us pure and worthy through His death. Nothing we could have done on our own, but through Him, we are worthy. And when the end comes and we get to go and live in heaven, we will be faultless and pure because of Jesus. But when we are here on earth, we should still do what He is saying and look after those who are in need, and be set apart from the world. But yeah, okay. That was James chapter 1. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you could take something out of this episode. And again, I want to remind, I'm not a pastor. I'm just someone who is reading the Bible and sharing my thoughts and what has stood out to me before and the things that I've learned through it. But I'm not always right. And double check for yourself if you're like, I just don't agree that that's what it was saying. Oh, that's totally okay. Just go and look for yourself and go to God and what you believe God is saying in it. And yeah, I don't know. That was episode 1 of the James series. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing day or night, whatever time it is for you. Yeah, I will see you when I see you. Probably in a week or two. Since it's a series, I do want to be consistent with it. But I'm getting my wisdom teeth removed soon, so I don't know how that's gonna go. And there might be a bigger pause than I would like in the podcast because of that. So, just saying. But, yeah. Okay. Bye!